Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Chris Conrey with us. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Bronson, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have an interesting discussion today. It's going to be unique, maybe compared to some of the other guests.
I definitely have a good time with it.
That's right. And so you currently work at VUURR, and it says online that you specialize in Post Modern Sales, and you're also the writer of the Post Modern Sales Manifesto. So this
That's
seems
right.
to be a little bit of a theme going on with you, this postmodern sales thing. So before we get into postmodern, tell us, what is modern sales? Let's start there.
So I patterned this on, similar to how people hear postmodern when it comes to art or religion or other things. And, modern sales is the stuff that people know about right now. It's your Glengarry Glen Ross, it's your, car salesman, the coffee is for closers, and the if I could, would yas, and all the really, pushy and kind of slimy stuff that most people think of when you hear salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Sales has it's a four-letter word for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to be sold to. No one likes talking to salespeople, and we all get telemarketers or those things in our lives. That's modern sales. That's what the world has grown up with, and that's the old world.
Yeah.
Much in the way that modern art went back to the old style of things, and postmodern was the next step beyond that. Postmodern sales is what's coming next. It's actual sales for the coming world.
Yeah. Are modern sales diminishing? We know they work to some degree. You can fight it and make it work a little bit, but is it diminishing, you think, over time, the results people get from it?
I do. I think it is diminishing. I think it's definitely on the downward slope.
Mm-hmm.
It is still the prevalent way that most salespeople work and act.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that most of us are comfortable with when it comes to, like, I know what I'm getting into when I step onto a car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to, talk to the manager at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that I'm going to have to do these things, and there's a lot of the pushy and the going, but I'm used to that. And so I kind of like, and I say this as someone who used to sell cars.
Okay.
I've had my shots. I'm not contagious. Don't worry.
Uh-huh.
But people come onto the dealership very defensive. When you go to buy a major appliance or furniture or those sort of things, very similar. You get very defensive because you're going to be sold.
Yeah.
This is why places like Circuit City and Best Buy have such a bad reputation, where you're going to go in to buy a TV, and then they're going to push a warranty and monster cables on you, and these sort of things, because they're trying to get those upsells. Cell phone places used to have this bad reputation, and they're still pretty bad about that. Well, you need an OtterBox case, and you need the Apple Care Plus plan, and the extra coverage in case you get roadside assistance, and those sort of things. And so I think it is still very prevalent. I think probably a majority of the sales experiences people have today are still like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that trend is going to start shifting very quickly. The democratization of information online, the ability now for a lot of consumers have as much or more information than salespeople, is really starting to shift that over time.
So it's kind of the balance of power is shifting. The power's not in the dealership's hands, where they know the actual margins and no one else does. They know how far they can actually go with the discount. Now we know the margins better than they do. We can look at Amazon prices and say, look, Amazon has zero margins. We know that's the actual cost, or something close to it.
If you're buying a new car, anyone in the world can go online to Edmunds.com and find out what the actual dealer invoice is for any new car on the lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute you can do that, you're already ahead of most salespeople, because most car salespeople don't even have that access to that number.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads us into postmodern sales, because obviously if modern sales are broken in some way, then what is the next thing? And I think you're right, there is a next thing, because the ethos of the internet just doesn't even work with modern sales. It's still there to some degree, and it'll always be kind of lingering in the background because things take forever to die. But the ethos of the internet is very much something different than modern. So tell us, what is postmodern sales at kind of a high level, and then we'll get into the details of it a little bit.
Sure. So the term postmodern sales came to me over almost 2 years ago. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually been doing a podcast with a friend of mine who's another sales guy. He's a sales trainer in town. And we'd been talking a lot about kind of the changing world of sales and whatnot. And I had a bout of insomnia, as all good ideas are born from, and was sitting in my living room floor and started writing. And the idea of postmodern sales really started resonating. Like, first off, that's a great three-word term that nothing Googled for. It didn't exist. No one had the domain, so I immediately spent $10 on the domain.
Yeah.
And I started really writing, what does postmodern sales look like? Knowing what we know about modern sales, postmodern sales is what's coming. It's the future, and the balance of power with information is one of the key things. Knowing that everybody is on equal footing when it comes to knowledge now. Sales has always been a he who has the knowledge has the power sort of world, and now that everyone has the knowledge, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean in a world where collaboration is just as important over who wins the deal?
Yeah.
The world where people want to build relationships both online with entities and with people that they can trust. And I'm not saying that didn't exist in the past, but I feel like the current technology and the current trends in society point even more towards that.
Yeah.
And so focusing on all those things and really recognizing that people want to be sold differently. People still want to be sold. People still are going to have a need to buy things, but it needs to, that transaction has now shifted the power balance to the middle instead of being on the sell side.
Yeah.
And so being able to recognize that is the number one most important thing in sales. And then the other real key tenet for me is that everybody in some role is in sales now. Whether you are the receptionist at the front of the doctor's office to the, school crossing guard, you are representing your organization in a selling fashion, because every transaction, either with money or emotion or time, is realistically a sales moment for everybody.
No, it makes total sense, and I think as we get into the details, it's going to make even more sense for our audience why the the person at the front desk, why that touch point is almost as important as many of the other ones that we associate with sales. You mentioned the word relationship, and one of the first tenets of postmodern sales, according to you, is that relationships and interactions are valued over transactions. Go into that
Correct.
just a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So the manifesto, I patterned it off of the Agile manifesto. So I come from a software background. I've worked in the tech industry for most of my career, and the Agile manifesto was something that spoke really heartily to me. And the Agile manifesto is laid out in the very same way. There are things that we value over other things. Now, the things on the right side are just important too, but we think the things on the left side are more important. So the first line of the manifesto is relationships and interactions over transactions, where obviously as a salesperson, you have to push numbers, you have to keep the lights on in your business. But one of the things that I've always tried to do really well, and this has got me in trouble when I sold cars because dealerships didn't think this way, but it's worked really well for me as I've moved into a more modern world, a more postmodern world, where I meet with people all the time. And I, first off, want to find out what they're all about and find out how I can help them. And if helping them isn't what my company can do, I have no problem saying, hey, you should go talk to Bronson, or you should go talk to so-and-so, or, hey, we may not be the right fit for you right now, but I can see where we might be later. In the meantime, here are some things you can do that you can do on your own so you don't have to waste this money outlay. Where in the modern world, it's all about getting that sale. Even if it's not the right thing for the customer, it's getting that sale. And for me, it's all about making sure that we're building the right trust and building the right relationship so the customer knows that you're really doing for them, not for you.
Yeah. And it seems like by focusing on relationships, because the world is postmodern in so many ways, you actually will have more transactions because you're going to have a reputation of caring and actually being honest and truthful and accurate and not trying to drive the hard sell by a deadline. And so you actually get more of both just by coming at it a different way. I mean, do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And I just finished Dan Pink's new book, To Sell is Human, and he actually talks about the term servant selling, basically playing on the term servant leadership, where, again, you're building with their best interest in mind, not yours. And that builds you a great reputation. It builds you the kind of thing where people will say, hey, you should go talk to Chris. He may not be able to help you, but he'll definitely know who can.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece that really comes out of that is I think good salespeople in the postmodern world are connectors. They're the kind of people that are going to have a wide network that they have access to, and that they're going to have a pretty varied range of even things that seem totally tangentially related. They're going to be able to know either who to talk to or who to know that will talk to them.
Yeah.
I have people ask me all the time. I had someone ask me yesterday, hey, I'm looking to get a new stereo in my car. Do you know somebody? I haven't been in the car world in years, but I still have that network. I still have those people I might be able to talk to. And so people come to me for that stuff. And that is really powerful for me. And so like my Twitter background and my Facebook background, they build on that. My logos for those, show a network and show me connecting people, because that's what makes my day. I love referring business to other people. I love closing business for my company, obviously. But, when I can help someone else out and therefore help two people out at the same time, that's almost as awesome.
Yeah. I get the feeling you've read Dale Carnegie a few times.
I have actually never finished the book. It's in my Kindle. I've read it, and I know the concept. I've been to enough sales training things. I just have never actually finished the book. I need to get there sometime.
Well, you do it well, so I don't know if you really need to finish it, so don't worry about it. The second point of postmodern sales is establishing value over lowering price and rate. Now, this is going to be important for the entrepreneurs and the startups listening, because they're very they're very insecure about pricing, and they feel like they need to be cheaper than the competitors, and they want to be the cheapest rate, and they feel like Walmart is the only model or Amazon is the only model. So explain to us this establishing value over that.
So I think you hit it right on the head. People are deathly afraid of charging too much, and they should be afraid of charging too little. But there's a perception that people buy on price. And I think for certain things, for very commoditized things, people do. People buy toothpaste and shampoo and milk on wherever they can get it the cheapest. But people don't buy the cheapest cars. And they don't buy the cheapest cars because that says something else. There's other perceptions about the car you drive. If everyone bought cheap cars, Kia and Hyundai would be killing it, and no one would ever drive a Mercedes or a Lamborghini. But everyone talks about wanting to have a Mercedes or an AMG or a Lamborghini or a Veyron or whatever in their driveway. And what that means is those guys have established value. And that value may not necessarily be monetary. There's things that item says about you. If you own a Mercedes, that talks about you in a different way.
Yeah.
Or if you own a Rolex watch, that says something about how you value your appearance and how you project to other people. And whatever it is you're selling, be it a physical good, a meal. I mean, restaurants do a great job of this. Some of the best restaurants don't serve the best food, but they put on a great atmosphere. I mean, I've had some great food in little dumpy hole-in-the-wall places, but the atmosphere is what makes it, because it's authentic, and it builds a value like, oh, I'm getting literally tortillas from a dude who just rolled them out behind that wall. Like, that's a value. So you're getting an authenticism, that value, or you're getting a exclusivity thing. This place is only open on Tuesdays for 3 hours, so if I get in, I'm super awesome. So you build those other values, and when you're selling, like startups do this a lot, is you're selling online. You want to build a value of, this is going to do whatever problem it is. It's going to solve that problem. Or you're establishing a value of exclusivity. Mailbox, the iPhone app that does mail, just did this. They did that exclusivity thing where they basically let a slow trickle of people in. And when you open the app, you said, oh, there's 18,000 people in front of me. And there's 37,000 people behind me, because that's how much demand this is. So they built their own little demand engine by establishing a value. Hey, we know that this thing is going to be great, but we don't want to overburden ourselves. So we're going to slowly let people in so we can get the bugs worked out until everyone's in. Here's where you're at. Apple does this. Apple computers aren't the cheapest. We all know this. And they're a trite example, but it works in this case, where I can get a comparable specs to the MacBook Air I have in my lap right now. I can get the new Lenovo Yoga. One of my coworkers has one, and it's a great machine, and it costs a little bit less, and it does more. But Apple has built that trust in it just works. And it plugs in with everything I already have, and I'm in the ecosystem, and it works on my iPhone. So they've built that value over time. And I think a lot can be learned from companies that do a good job of building values beyond money. It's about showing how this is going to solve your problem in a way that is comfortable and says something about you.
Yeah, and the way you said it, it's about showing them the value and the way it solves the problem and those kind of things. I think is important, because sometimes we think about value only in luxury brands, like only the Mercedes, only the Apple, and we don't really think, it's like, well, what is my little startup going to do with luxury? Like, I'm not a luxury brand. But luxury and value are different. Luxury is one kind of value, but authenticity is another kind of value. Understanding your needs, false scarcity. I mean, all the things you mentioned, there's different kinds of value, and the goal is to show that value, whatever it may be, instead of just focusing on price as the only indicator of value, because sometimes it's not even an indicator of value at all.
Exactly. Price is a very small part. Things like automation or time saving or making a difficult thing easier or access to things. Founders Card does this, right? People that have a founder's card, and it's a known thing in the startup world, you pay a monthly membership, but it gets you access to things that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And that's their value. Their value isn't the little cool metal card. Oh, that is cool looking. But their value is, I know that I can go to events where people I wouldn't normally have access to are going to be, or I'm going to have discounts on things that I use anyway. And addition to the other things that it gets me. And my name's on a list somewhere so other people can have access to me that may want to.
Yeah, absolutely. The third point is that customer collaboration over haggling and negotiation. So talk to us about that, because it's hard to imagine anything except haggling and negotiation in the sales world.
And I think that's one of the things that'll change the fastest as we move from modern to postmodern sales. And I think we're already starting to see that now. You see places, General Motors tried this with Saturn back in the 90s with the one pricing, the non-negotiable pricing. CarMax does this now on used cars in the car world. Apple doesn't discount their prices. JCPenney, obviously Ron Johnson went from Apple to JCPenney and tried this with, hey, we're not going to do the big discounts. This is just our pricing scheme so everyone knows what's up. They're trying to get away from that. I'm waiting for the Groupon. I'm waiting for the 20% off coupon. I'm waiting for the buy one, get one deal because I know that I've established value over time as a seller. So I know that when my customers come in, I'm going to be able to do this. Yeah. I think Zappos does a great job of this. And again, another overused example, but they do it really well. Yeah. Zappos doesn't have the best prices on most shoes. They do on some, but what they do have is they have all the tools to allow you as a customer to work with them. They mail you shoes, you try them on, if they don't fit, you mail them back. And they're very nice about it. And it's a painless process, and they work with you. If you call Zappos, and I've told salespeople I've mentored before, if you want a good experience to learn something, pick up the phone and call Zappos and see how long you can keep them on the phone. I guarantee you're going to want to hang up before the guy at Zappos is. Yeah. And most salespeople, that's not the case. Most salespeople want to get you in the door, on the phone, buying something right away, and then off the phone so they can move on to the next one. Zappos actually decides they want to work with the customer. Yeah. And I think that's a model that's going forward. And you're starting to see this a lot with, as software goes, you see people that do the little live chat thing as support right there on their site. Or you see people that respond to emails at 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday night. I'm not saying you need to work 24/7 to do this, but if that's the expectation you set, that's what you're going to start living up for. And I think that gets a lot of reputation. Southwest Airlines does this. Again, another overused example, but they actually try to work with customers and try to have a fun experience as well. And again, their prices are cheaper most of the time, and they don't do the nickel and diming with the bag fees and $5 for this and $7 for that and all that. But they're honest about it up front. Hey, we do this so that your tickets are less costly.
No, that's great. And then the final point is that long-term partnerships over rigidly defined roles. Explain that to us. I'm not even sure what you mean by that.
So I've had the most conversation probably about this line, and it is a little more vague. This one really speaks to a lot of the old school buying process, the RFP world, I have to go through procurement to get sign off from 6 people, and I can't touch this thing because it's not in my realm. And this one really ties a lot more into kind of the changing way we work as a society, not just in sales, where there isn't now a sales department and a marketing department and an advertising department and a development department. Those lines are all blurring, and those lines are all becoming one because the world is moving so quickly that you can't wait for a thing to move through 3 different committees because by then your competitor's already done it, failed at it, and moved on to the next thing.
Okay, I got you now.
That rigidly defined structure, that rigid hierarchy is changing very quickly. You're starting to see this a lot, and startups have actually embraced this very well, is you see a lot more flat organizations where you don't have this giant tree structure where you can't talk to the CEO. You have to talk to somebody who talks to the manager, who talks to the VP, who then talks to the CEO, and it might come back down the chain at some point. That world is going to die. Yeah. The world moves way too quickly for that. And I think empowering employees to build those partnerships with people in other organizations as well as within your own is going to be one of the most valuable things going forward, both in changing the way we buy and the way we sell. Yeah, but also and obviously the way we work.
Yeah. And just hearing you kind of unpack postmodern sales, it's great because I feel like people, that approach a company, approach a startup, they may not be able to point to, oh, they're doing premise 2 really well, or oh, they're doing premise 4 really well, but intuitively they know something's right. Like they feel connected, they feel a relationship, they feel like they're being cared about, they feel like they're not just a cattle being moved through the process in the herd. So I think like consumers are very in touch with this ethos whether they can actually tell you why or not. And I think that's important for startups to really hear, is that this stuff matters whether people get it or not.
Right. And I think that is one of those things. It's the kind of thing that if you do well, it will go transparently. They're not going to recognize after the fact, oh, wow, that was a really painless process. And they may not have, like you said, they may not be able to put a pin right in why, but they're going to know, wow, dealing with Bronson was awesome. I want to do more like that. Who else does business that way? Or how can I do business more like that? How can my customers have that same experience? Because it does. It feels way more natural. It feels a lot more human. And shockingly enough, one of the biggest feedback things that salespeople get is, I want to be treated like a human. I want to feel like I'm more than just a conquest for you as you're going through the selling process. I want to know that you actually care about what's going on for me. And that's the way sales used to be. You hear about the door-to-door salespeople and everyone knew their mailman and everyone knew the milkman and those sort of things. That's gone away. Let's bring that back because it works, especially as people want to be more connected.
Absolutely. I think about when I think about my day, it's like when I go home to my family, I'm obviously very relational. It's not a transaction, when I help do chores around the house or when I, do whatever with my kid, none of it's transactional. And so the more I can blur the line between work and that, probably the better off I'll be. If I can just treat the people I work with all day like friends and colleagues and coworkers and, champions alongside me, and then I go home and I do the same thing, it's going to be better for everyone because we are just humans at the end of the day. The constructs of corporations is something we've made up. It's not something inherently that's a part of the human race.
It's a complete societal construction, and it has value. But I think you're right. And as a parent, you hit it right on the head. Treat your interactions with your clients and your customers and your coworkers and other people in the industry like you do with your family. I mean, I've got 3 kids. I have 3 daughters. I get home and they don't want to hear about, well, this takes 7 hours to do this and we can't do that. I don't want to negotiate over bedtime. They just want to say, well, can I stay up 5 more minutes so I can do this with you? And they want to have those conversations and they want to be treated as a actual value to the conversation, even though they're 6 years. Like I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old and a baby. And they still want to have that same interaction. And unfortunately, salespeople have always treated their customers like kids, but in the way that, we treat parents, it's bedtime, you have to go to bed right now, you don't do that, you can't do this. I mean, how many times has someone called customer service and said, well, I can't help you, I can't do anything about that? Any salesperson or any customer service person that says that's against policy, I can't do that, is an instant fire in my book, because that's not the way the world works. You're not empathizing, you're not caring, you're not trying to build a relationship at all. You're just saying, well, the book says I can't do X, so I can't do X.
And
without understanding why.
And startups are so uniquely positioned to take advantage of postmodern sales because they don't have to buy into the bureaucracy. They can do it any way they want because they're already a rebel in every other way. Why not be a rebel in how they view sales itself within their organization? Well,
and especially because they're generally smaller organizations, they have the flexibility as small companies to start with this and build it into the culture, build it right into how they do things. And it makes it much easier to do as you get large. Facebook obviously is a monolithic organization now, but, they've started a lot of processes in their world when they were, 5 or 6 guys and are able now to continue that now that they're 500 or 600 guys because they built that into their system and they built that into their culture and their way of being. If you can bake this type of thing into your sales organization from the beginning, it gets to be very easy to scale this out. So when you're as big as Salesforce or AT&T, this is the way you work, and that's what Zappos did, and that's what Southwest Air did. When Southwest Air was going to 5 airports, they built this culture of we're going to treat the customer like family, and they've been able to maintain that now that they're the 3rd biggest airline in the U.S.
Yeah, that's great. Now, as I was looking around online, I looked at how you described yourself in some of your profiles, and you're great at describing yourself, by the way. You do give people a great window into who you are.
I've had a lot of help.
That's good. But one of the things you say is you call yourself a hacker of psychology and words. What does that mean?
So I work in the software world. So, a lot of my guys are hackers with code. They write and build amazing things. And I actually have a background in development, but I'm so bad at it and so out of practice that the days I'm writing code are real bad things. So rather than hacking on code, I hack people. I hack psychology. I hack the way things are said and the way words are used. Because words are just as powerful, spoken or written, as any interaction in your software.
Yeah.
And so I focus my day on changing the way we think about things and changing the way we say things verbally and written to make an effect. That way we're affecting the right things for our customers and for us down the road. So I test and I play with all different types of wordings. I test and play with all different types of just thought processes and try to get people to act in certain ways just to see what happens. It's an experiment that I'm hoping to learn more about, one, how that particular person reacts, but also, how does that work in the grander scheme for our organization?
No, that's great, because we hear about hacking in so many other realms. Obviously the code hackers on this program, growth hacking,
Right.
sales is a part of that. And then, we also hear about copywriting, so that's kind of gaining some momentum, but we don't really hear about it with the spoken word as well. And I think it's really important. I mean, if somebody were just to rewatch this interview, you've done a number of things where you've tried to hack psychology in words just me and you talking, Like you've used my first name, at least 2 times now. Like that's hacking psychology in words that people usually don't recognize. But when somebody does it and you're on the receiving end, you recognize it, right? So there's all these little things you can do.
Hearing your name personally hit, this is the number one thing I teach sales. But the first thing, if you could say someone's name, it activates parts of their brain that make them like you more.
Absolutely. And you've already done it, and I can instantly attest to it. And I try to do it with other people as well, Chris.
Yeah, but I'm watching for it now. I'm on to you.
That's right. The other thing I noticed on your online profiles is this, I think, was from a few years back, but it might still be relevant. You said that you were in human to geek relations. What does that mean?
So when I first started back in the software world, I was working at a company, and we were able to pick our own fun titles. And when I was thinking about what I wanted my title to be, when I was first recruited to join the company, the person that brought me on said, and they were a friend of mine, they brought me on and said, what I'm looking for, I need someone that can interface with the developers and understand what they're saying and be able to help, bring that geekiness down to a level where our customers can understand it and make that make sense for everybody. And so I said, kind of like, human to geek translation. And it just stuck. And so I kind of ran with that as my title for a while, because that was a lot of my day, was using my development background, using my computer science background to understand what the development team was talking about and the technical side of things, and being able to put that in a system where non-technical people could understand. We had a number of clients who were very non-technical, from golf people to candy people to medical people, who have their own language and things that they are very passionate about, but they don't understand LDAP from FTP from Gmail. They don't know; those are just foreign to them. I might as well be speaking Greek. So being able to translate in a system where this is going to interact in this way for you and put it at a very user level was just a natural thing for me. And I actually have a lot of fun doing that. It's anyone that does tech support for their family and has to explain why you don't double click certain things and you do things this way, does this naturally, and it's a difficult thing to do well.
Yeah. Do you think a startup should be on the lookout for someone with that kind of role? Because I think about engineers, and they have to spend so much time writing code. There is no time to do relationship building at all. So then you bring in somebody that's good at biz dev, but if they don't speak the coding language to some cursory level, it's hard to really kind of bridge the gap on to the world. Do you think they should be on the lookout for someone like you?
I think they should definitely try to find either a person who can write code but also talk to people. In fact, I'd do that first, or I'd find a salesperson that understands code. Yeah. But I would spend 60% of my time trying to find a developer that I can teach to be in sales before I found a salesperson I could teach about development. But I think having that skill set, having that ability to kind of be a day walker and walk both sides is very valuable. Going forward, anything technical is going to have to be explained to people that may not, especially new and innovative things. Yeah. If this is a brand new thing, you have to explain why this is important.
Yeah, and it speeds up the sales process because you don't have to circle back to the team to get the tech answer every time you're in a meeting with somebody. You can just speak confidently. No, this is what it does. This is what it doesn't do. It probably won't ever do this. This is probably on the roadmap. Like you can just move past those phases so fast.
Right. The old way of doing this was your sales engineer. Right. It was you had your sales guy go out with one of the technical team who was your sales engineer, who would basically answer the technical questions, and then the sales guy would spin it however necessary for the customer. Nowadays, that role needs to become one. And that's where that human to geek translation role is a very postmodern role.
Yeah. Now, you're in postmodern sales at VUURR. So tell us, what is VUURR? VUURR?
Correct. VUURR is a digital and analytics-based marketing firm. We are basically a professional growth hacking team for you. We come in and take a look at the analytics, take a look at what's actually going on, find out what the goals are with you, and then work towards those. So we do a lot of PPC management, landing page optimization, funnel optimization, as well as custom development to make things go from there.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I want to talk about your role in just a minute, but tell us, when VUURR meets a new client, what are some of the things that they always have to do? What are some of the things that are just always broken with clients?
So analytics, most people say, oh yeah, we have analytics installed, and they have the 2 little lines of Google Analytics code on their site. And that's 70% of analytics. That's going to get you the base details, but it's not getting into the end zone, to mix my metaphors there. I mean, it gets you something, but it doesn't get you nearly the data it has if you have your proper goal flow, your proper funnel set up, and some of the more advanced things you can do with analytics. It's one of those tools that everybody uses, but nobody uses the full potential of, or almost nobody uses the full potential of. And so that's one of the first things. And that's often set, either incorrectly or set via old standards because people they've changed the way things go with that. I think the other thing that we see very commonly are, they've worked with some other agency that kind of gets SEO and kind of gets the way Google works. And so they have things that are sort of right or were right a year and a half ago, but Google's changed those since then. And so there's a lot of things that need to happen there.
Yeah, you have to be on the edge of this stuff because, a year does not make it, stay relevant. Now you
got to live and breathe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you say that on one of your profiles that you launch VUURR and its clients into bank-breaking deals. I like that phrase. Now you've already told us probably some of the ways you do that with the postmodern sales and hacking psychology and words and being that geek to human relationship thing. How else beyond that stuff do you launch VUURR and clients into bank-breaking deals?
A lot of it is really the stuff we've talked about. I spent a lot of time with people. I spent all day yesterday at an early meeting with a client. A client's working with another agency that's going to do the branding and the design and a lot of the surface level things for the identity of the brand. And then we're going to come in behind and do the optimization and the actual build out of the new site. I invested, half of my day yesterday in just sitting in and learning about kind of the whys and the whats and the wheres all these new stuff is coming from. Yeah. So that when we get to the messaging side and we're doing advertising, we're doing optimization for them, we understand the foundation that they're building on. I didn't need to be in that meeting. It's not we had no actionable steps that came out of the meeting yesterday, but spending that couple hours there and building that relationship, 1, and 2, understanding the wheres and the whats and the whys is going to pay off dividends down the road. Yeah. When we get to the part where we're writing ads with them and we're doing landing page testing, we're going to really be able to tap into those same core concepts at a level that we wouldn't have if we didn't have that understanding. It would take more time at least. So I do a lot of those things. Yeah.
Do you find yourself having to build a lot of partnerships to kind of move things forward? Is that a big part of what you're doing?
It is, and mostly because we've focused VUURR so much on what we're really good at. We don't, for example, we don't do design. And we're very upfront about that. Most agency types say, oh yeah, we do everything, and then they sub it out to somebody anyway. We've been transparent from day one. We aren't the paint and bodywork guys, but we are your engine and transmission guys. Okay. It may not look good when we build it, but it's going to run like hell. But we know lots of people that can make it look good too. So let's help you find the right paint and bodywork people to make the design work and make the color scheme and those sort of things go. And when they put that beautiful paint job on top of the engine and stuff we built, it's going to look good and run like hell. Yeah. So that's one of the things is we have a number of partnerships with other agencies that specialize in design or specialize in social or in PR, where there's things that we could do if we wanted to put the time and effort into it, but we're passionate about making their product work better and making their dollars spend further. So we focus our efforts there and build partnerships with people that can help support that role.
Yeah. The times with my startups where I've formed partnerships, it's always paid dividends. It's always been great. Do you think partnerships is kind of an underutilized asset for startups at least?
I think a lot of startups get it, but it is underutilized. I mean, stick to the things that you're best at and know that so that you can find the people that can help accentuate your deficiencies. Yeah. If you're really good in one place and not in another, there is nothing wrong with finding someone that's really good at the thing you're bad at and working with them and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. I know it works for you. Can we share this? Or is there a way we can work together that we both get better? Yeah. And it's that mutual interest thing that is where a partnership really works.
And one thing I found kind of personally and with my friends is that when a startup is like really heavy on engineering and they have a lot of quality engineers, they're more adverse to letting other people do things. They just think, well, we can build it. It's only going to take a couple of weeks, when it's actually going to take a couple of months, and they do it better anyway, and you should have partnered with them and built synergy and been able to leverage their audience also. And so there's all these things that would have come from just, getting other people involved. So I think sometimes I've seen companies that are built by MBAs that are much more prone to partnerships because that's the only tool they have. Like, they have to get people involved, and so that's what they kind of go toward. Is that what you see as well?
I think that's a good part of it, but there's a lot of trust issues. It's very scary to give that trust up when you build a partnership and say, well, I've never worked with Bronson before, but I know from everything I've seen and all the people I've talked to that he's really good at this, and I'm not, so I'm gonna have to make that handoff there and hope. And that first time is really scary. And it gets easier over time, but it is a scary thing the first time, and that's hard. And especially a lot of people, and stereotyping a little bit, developers tend to be a little more control-centric than other people. And so it is very difficult. Engineering heavy, tend to be control-heavy too. And so knowing that going in, forcing yourself to make that jump and to do the scary thing sometimes pays off long-term, but it is hard to do it the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you a chance to brag a little bit. What have been some of the really big wins that you had for VUURR, through kind of utilizing, postmodern sales and just spending that much time with the customers and all that stuff you talked about?
So we've actually had 2 times in the past year, we've had clients that their goal was, I need my phone to ring. And so all of our ad campaigns, everything we did was targeted towards getting people to pick up the phone and call. And twice in the last 9 months, I've had a call back from the client going, we need to back things off. I can't answer these fast enough. Which does nothing but make you feel awesome. I mean, when someone gets that phone call, you just grin because you're like, yes, just killing it. And we've had other times where clients have come to us and said, hey, we've tried to do this. Here's what our conversion rates look like. Here's our form fill out rates. And we're able to get in there and really dig with them. And when we find out what the real root cause is, the surface level cause might look like it's X. But when you start digging, there's really 3 layers deep. There's another thing that's causing all of that. And when we spend that time and find those and then see a huge win, a 4 times increase in form fill outs or a 3 times increase in conversion rate or a margin increase from 65% to 82%, that just feels awesome because you know that their investment in you paid off huge for them.
All right, so let's dig into those a little bit. Tell us what you can, all right? So, you're making these phones ring, and they're ringing too much. I mean, what is that? Is that a great SEO strategy that took hold? Is that pay-per-click, in the right way? I mean, what was the basic kind of fundamental building blocks to make that kind of work?
So in both cases, they were well-executed pay-per-click campaigns with proper targeting and proper keyword structure, 2 well-built landing pages that grabbed and had calls to action that were amazing. So it was really a combination of my pay-per-click team and my landing page team building awesome campaigns that worked really well together and hit the customers right where they wanted to be.
That's great. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Just, what was the basics of the play, So that's awesome. Now, you've recently co-founded 2 very interesting companies. I think one is launched. I think one is still in beta. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But let's start with Connectalytics.
Okay.
What is Connectalytics?
So Connectalytics is a tool that allows you to push your Bing ads data at a keyword level into Google Analytics in the same way that Google AdWords does. So anyone that's done Google AdWords knows you can connect your analytics and it pulls all that data right in alongside. So you can see in your analytics right down to the keyword and campaign level what's working, what's costing money, what's driving traffic, what's not. Until Connectalytics, there was no way to do that with Bing data. Very separate tools. Google opened up a new API that allows you to do some things, and it solved a problem we had, obviously. As many campaigns as we run for clients, both across Bing and Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, being able to put that stuff side by side and really do a comparison of, hey, this keyword works really well on Bing, not so much on Google, vice versa on these other keywords. Very valuable for us to be able to look at those things at a glance and make smart decisions for our clients.
Okay, so you're not managing Bing within Google. You're bringing in the Bing data into Google for comparison and analysis. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. So you're not able to actually edit your Bing ads data from the analytics dashboard. Just like you are with AdWords, you have to log into AdWords and do it from there. You have to log into Bing and do it as well here. But it allows you to really make those judgments from a level of a marketer saying, okay, I'm spending 10 grand this month, 5 on Google, 5 on Bing. Should I shift that to 6 on Bing and 4 on Google, or 7 on Google and 3 on Bing? where should I spend that money to be most effective for me? We have a client, they're an online retailer, where branded terms work really, really well for them on Bing. On Google, not nearly as well. So a lot of their side campaigns work better on Google. So we spend heavily on branded keywords on Bing and much less heavily on branded keywords on Google. But some of their more specific campaigns for targeting or lifestyle type, we've targeted on Google because it's more effective there than on Bing.
Okay, so this is really targeted to a company that's probably already running ads on Bing and Google, but they don't
Correct.
have quite the data they need to make great decisions yet.
Right. I mean, the data's all there. It's just a lot more difficult to get to. The old way of doing this was doing, URL structure in your link back from your Bing ads with the, at UTM Bing. And everyone's had to play those games and build those huge URLs. Mm-hmm. This makes that even easier for you. We are trying to get Facebook integrated as well so that people running Facebook ads can do the same thing with their data. Mm-hmm. We're waiting on API access from Facebook to do that. And eventually we plan on adding as many sources as possible to that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now tell me about levers a little bit. It seems like it's similar and yet different all at the same time. So what is levers?
So actually in the very near future, Connectalytics is rolling into levers. It's going to be known as levers feeds.
Okay, so I wasn't off by thinking there was some similarity there.
There is. Levers feeds is going to be the base level of levers. Mm-hmm. So what levers is designed to do, and the whole goal behind levers is, let's look at everything you have about your digital marketing. Your pay-per-click, your SEO, your email marketing, any fixed costs you may have, mm-hmm. and find out, much like Archimedes did, trying to, with the simple system and knowing that if I had a big enough lever, I could move the earth, find out which levers move your marketing world in the best ways so that, again, should I spend more money on SEO? Should I spend more money getting my email open rate better? Should I get more, pay-per-click budget or increase my click-through rate, and find out what that lever is that's going to be most effective for your campaigns and your budget so that you can make the most money and solve the most problems.
Yeah, so what kind of companies should be using the levers? Who is that really targeted at?
So we're targeting there's two targets. Obviously, I think it's the kind of thing that a lot of agencies are going to be able to use to help increase transparency and visibility for their customers, as well as make their lives a lot easier. And then anyone who's spending a significant amount of money on digital marketing through online presence with landing pages. Retail obviously is a natural market for it, but we've actually had some success with other clients as well. Pardon me. That want to be able to track what they're doing and how much engagement they're gaining online. So if you're spending money on ads or spending money, selling stuff online, being able to track those things all the way through is super valuable. So we're looking, both at, e-commerce type sites as well as enterprise sites where, if you're selling software, you're selling services, knowing, if I'm spending $8,000 to make $9,000, is that as effective as if I do a few other things and I can spend $5,000 to make $9,000? Mm-hmm. I'd much rather do the latter, and I think probably most people would as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it seems like you're very in tune with kind of the pay-per-click world, and more so even what's broken about it. I mean, you're actively building products, Connectalytics and now levers that are really trying to fix and alleviate some of the problems with PPC. So maybe there's some things that you don't have time to fix, but are still broken. Give us a hat tip. What's something that some startup needs to fix about pay-per-click?
So I think pay-per-click in and of itself, the biggest thing is most people just don't know how to use it well. It's still a very complicated kind of esoteric thing. Mm-hmm. And doing a lot of the testing and a lot of the, being able to kind of do things side by side is very hard right now. And that's the problems we're trying to solve is how do I make it easier knowing that there are multiple ecosystems to spend my marketing budget on? Mm-hmm. Not just in the pay-per-click realm, but also, how do I track efficiency in pay-per-click versus SEO? How do I know if I'm better off working on my natural rankings versus paid? Where are my clients coming from? Yeah. And it's such an individualized and personal thing that there's some math and some data around all of those things, but knowing all of the inputs from the customer side as well is the hard part. And so being able to get those and then do some of the math and optimization behind that is the real power that we're trying to solve. Yeah. I don't want to solve it because I want to be first. So I'm working on that.
But so really the problem is complexity because it is complex. And so if you can find a way to still be powerful yet simple, that's going to be the kinds of products that can win in the PPC world.
Well, and I think it's very new too. I mean, remember, Google and AdWords are really only a decade or so old in wide adoption. And Bing Ads is really less than that. It's probably 6 years old in their current platform. Facebook's been public really in the public realm for 6 years. And advertising's only been really around for about 4 or 5 of those. And so these things are still relatively new in the grand scheme of things. And so part of that complexity is just all right, this is that new shiny thing. What do we do with it? How do we really optimize for this?
No, that's great. Well, Chris, this has been a great interview. I have one last question for you. So knowing everything you know now, knowing what you know about postmodern sales and business development and partnerships and relationships and analytics and pay-per-click and fill in the blanks, all the stuff that you do, knowing what you know now, if you were back in a startup tomorrow that had zero budget to really do anything meaningful with, and you were tasked with growing it, acquiring users, retaining users, monetizing users, how would you be spending your days? You wake up, you get a cup of coffee, and then you do what?
The very first thing I do, and this is a page right out of the Lean playbook, if you're not talking to your current customers and finding out what they really think, you are doing it wrong. I would pick up the phone and I would talk to every customer I have, from the one spending the most money to the brand newest one that started yesterday, and find out why us. What did we do that surprised you? What are we not doing well that you need better at? What things can we, change that make it easier for you? And really find out from people that already have that relationship and that trust built with you, what works. Because obviously, if you have customers, you want to have more customers like those customers.
Yeah.
In a perfect world. And if you have customers that aren't very good, ask them, hey, what can we do to make you do more like this?
Yeah.
And you have customers you love, what are we doing that attracted you? Who else is like you that we can bring in? And really have those conversations. And this goes right back to the original, build relationships. And have the faith to ask those questions. And you might hear things you don't want to hear. You're going to hear bad things, and that's okay. You have to take that and learn from it and not be upset when you hear things that don't jive with you. And take it as, this is something I can improve on, not this is something that they hate. And they're just hating on me to hate. Because you're going to find haters. Haters are out there, and that's fine.
And haters are going to hate.
Haters going to hate, but sometimes there's a grain of truth in that. And that's where you got to find it.
Yeah, winning at a startup is almost just being able to not be affected by people that hate what you're doing. I mean, right. I have incredibly thick skin. People's opinions of me, I realize they don't really know me. They're not really thinking about me. It's just one minor touch point when they criticize me. But for the rest of their life, I'm nothing to them. They're not thinking about me. Why am I thinking about them?
Exactly.
And if you can just have thick skin and go from, from kind of put down to put down, you'll end up with something great because you're the one gathering all the feedback when everyone else is afraid to even talk to people. And when you gather that feedback, you're going to win. So I think that's a great answer, Chris. Thank you again so much for coming on the program and kind of exposing a new way of thinking about sales that I think a lot of startups can benefit from.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad I could help. Look forward to hearing some great feedback.